Good evening and welcome to Crawley Borough Council's Cabinet of the 31st of January 2024. I'm Councillor Michael Jones, Leader of the Council and Chair of the Cabinet. And although I won't remark on this on every occasion, I'm very pleased to say that this is our first ever Cabinet meeting that's been live streamed. And as this meeting is being live streamed via the Council's Facebook account, this will be a trial run, but hopefully if it all runs successfully, then it will be a regular occurrence. Please note there is no comment function available on Facebook Live during the meeting, but the recording will be later uploaded to the Council's YouTube site. You should be aware that the Council is the data controller under the Data Protection Act. Data collected during the webcast will be retained in accordance with the Council's published retention policy. Any members of the public seated in the public gallery may be filmed by the automated camera system and your image may be captured. Therefore, by entering their meeting room, you are consenting to being filmed and to the possible use of those images and sound recordings for webcasting and or training purposes. Councillors are reminded to take notice of what is being displayed on the screens in the room, as these show what is being recorded. Please can councillors remain seated when speaking, as the cameras are currently set to capture seated positions. And please don't move the microphones too close to you. You can request to speak as usual in committees by raising your hand. However, to speak, please press the button with the face on it and the microphone will go green when you're live. For those in the building, there are no scheduled fire drills tonight, so in the event of a fire alarm activation, please leave the building. The main route is via the spiral staircase and through the main entrance doors. Should this route not be accessible, the secondary route is via the main spiral staircase across the contact centre and through the doors. Once outside, make your way to the fire assembly point located beyond the multi-storey car park on Exchange Road. If you're unable to use the stairs, please wait in the chamber and you'll be guided by a member of the staff to the evacuation lift. I'd like to request all mobile phones to be put on silent and put away, and can everyone please talk into the microphones. The agenda papers for this meeting are available on the Council's website, and we will now commence with apologies for absence. Have we received any apologies for absence?
No apologies.
Thank you. Disclosures of interest. Does any member have any disclosures of interest? Not seeing any. Thank you. Oh, Councillor Nawaz.
Thank you. Just on the interest, I would like to share. I'm a ward councillor for Three Bridges. So there's an agenda item which is talking about Three Bridges football pitch. So I just thought I'd share that.
Fair enough. I'm not sure you need to declare that. That's probably a matter of public record, but it will be noted. Yeah. Thank you. Minutes. Now we come to the minutes of the meeting held on the 10th of January. Does the Cabinet agree that the minutes are an accurate record of the meetings? Thank you. We now move on to the agenda item for public question time. We have up to 15 minutes for public question time. I'll invite each person in turn to the table at the front of the public seating area to ask their question, which must be a question, not a statement, and be related to the functions of the Cabinet. It must not relate to an individual case or duplicate, in essence, the question which has been put to the Cabinet in the past 6 months. If you can state your name, the ward you live in, and then ask your question, I'll then invite other councillors or officers to respond, or respond myself if that's appropriate. And then any member of the public may then ask one supplementary question which should relate to their original question or the response given to it. So, would anyone like to ask a question tonight? Mr. Burnham. Can you turn your microphone on, Mr. Burnham, because there's a...
We're on. 1 in 5 councils this year and next year face bankruptcy. What is the situation facing Crawley Council this year, please?
Thank you for your question, Mr. Burnham. We will be discussing this in quite some depth in later agenda items. The very short answer to give you at this point would be that the council faces significant financial pressures. However, we feel confident that over the coming year we have a plan and a strategy that will keep the council on a level playing field and enable us to continue services whilst we look at the longer term at what can be achieved. We're aiming to maintain acceptable reserves, balances in our reserves in order to do that, and as a result we feel that we're in a difficult situation, but probably more sustainable than some other councils are facing at the current time. Do you have a supplementary question? Yes. Sorry, you need to put your microphone back on, sorry.
Are you looking at cuts to balance the books?
There will be no cuts for the coming financial year, other than anything that we've already got in the budget papers. I don't think there's anything in the budget papers at present other than the savings that have been identified that constitute what you would call significant cuts. However, we will over the next year have to look at what is necessary, because we have a statutory duty to deliver a balanced budget, and the money that we are receiving from government continues to decrease, and also our other outgoings as a council are increasing. Thank you for your questions tonight.
Can I just say this, which is a matter of information? I don't have the internet, so
You've switched your microphone off, sorry.
Can Democratic Services send me the budget details, please?
I feel sure that can be arranged. Okay, thank you very much. Right, we will move on to the next item, which is further notice of intention to conduct business in private and notifications of any representations. Please can I ask the monitoring officer to confirm if we have received any notifications?
No, we haven't, Chair.
Thank you. Matters referred to the Cabinet and any report from the Chair of the Overview and Scrutiny Commission. As normal, Councillor Ayling, welcome. I'll bring you in during each item. So we now move on to the reports. We'll now consider the 2023-2024 Budget Monitoring Quarter 3 report. This is included in the supplementary agenda. I will present that. I will say, Cabinet, a significantly similar amount to what I said at the Overview and Scrutiny Commission on Monday night. Just to update everyone, starting with the General Fund, service expenditure pressures on the General Fund continue to be significant, with an anticipated overspend of £3.9 million against the original budget. The main service-related pressures include inflation, the pay award, challenging conditions over the letting of the Town Hall, plus additional cost and the district heat network. However, the most significant variation continues to be the cost of homelessness or temporary accommodation, which is predicted to result in an overspend of £3.6 million, which is an increase of around £900,000 more on what we estimated this would be in the last quarter. So many people are coming forward who we have a statutory duty as a council to house, mainly from private rental evictions at the moment, but there is some indication that asylum dispersal from the hotels by the Home Office is beginning to become a factor in the increases. The district heat network overspend is predominantly because we aren't getting the connection fees for the utilities for the old town hall site now. The former developers aren't proceeding with their development. This fee we have lost is almost as much as we're overspent by. Gas prices are high, and shielding tenants from the full effect has also had a cost, although that should have been addressed with the rise in the tariffs made last November. These cost pressures are mitigated by additional investment interest of circa £1.3 million, leaving the council a sizable projected overspend of £3.9 million against the original budget. In-year mitigations that have already been identified are the MRP adjustment, transfers from earmarked reserves that are no longer required, and a reduction in planned transfers to renewals funds totalling around £1.5 million. It's highly probable that further mitigations will have to be identified and actioned in Q4. We will leave no stone unturned, however, including the further review of earmarked reserves, and there will be several reviews that will continue into the next financial year to ensure that everything is possibly as identified. Importantly, though, everything we're doing is keeping us above the £3 million minimum balance in the council's reserves that we're aiming to retain for the purposes of financial prudence. It is a far from ideal situation for us here in Crawley, but it could be a great deal worse, and I think we are going to see that played out by quite a number of councils elsewhere across the country over the coming months. For us, temporary accommodation is still the elephant in the room. The expenditure that this council is having to incur on temporary accommodation is not sustainable, and there is a significant risk that the council will not be able to balance future budgets unless sufficient targeted funding is received from the government. The housing revenue account, the position has an improved forecast, and the outturn's now anticipated to be slightly favourable by £373,000. The overspend on the repairs contract has reduced to £1.8 million from £2 million. However, the right to buy capital receipts have effectively dried up, with a total of 6 this year, which is compared to 43 in the same period last year, which I think really gives an indication of what the actual state of the economy is probably like. This has resulted in additional £600,000 in rental income, but this also does have the negative effects on the level of available capital receipts for our anticipated programme, which is now several £1 million lower. The capital budget has been updated for the items agreed by the full council in December. The forecast projected significant slippage for future years. There's a risk to the capital budget due to the reduction in capital receipts, as borrowing has to be avoided under current financial circumstances, because any pressure on the general fund in the form of interest incurred and repayment cost of any loan is just not something that we want to do lightly at the moment. So that hopefully gives a comprehensive summary of the financial situation. So I will now bring in Councillor Ayling to present the Commission's comments. Councillor Ayling.
During the discussion with the Leader of the Council and the Head of Corporate Finance and the Chief Accountant, the following comments were made. Confirmation that the General Fund balance was still above the recommended minimal balance of £3 million. However, it was noted further reporting would be included in the financial outturn report. Noted that the biggest pressure on the Council's budget was homelessness. The Q3 forecast was £7.6 million on temporary accommodation for 23-24. As a result of the costs of the housing and temporary accommodation, it was moved by Councillor Lunnan and seconded by Councillor Russell that it would be beneficial for the Commission to have a detailed report on the rising costs and the data linked to these factors. Upon being put to the Commission, the proposal was declared carried. The Commission noted the report and requested that the views expressed during the debate were fed back to Cabinet through the Commission sheet, with the additional recommendation noted above. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ayling. Yeah, and I would just add that clearly we welcome the Commission's looking at the rising housing costs, and we will certainly do what we can to assist that. I'll now open the debate for other Cabinet members. Would anyone like to speak? Please indicate. I saw Councillor Irvine first. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I absolutely welcome the idea of a report on the cost of temporary accommodation going to the Overview and Scrutiny Commission. I think that would be very useful, and I hope that all members of the Commission will feel able to ask questions and try and dig into what is really happening with the cost of this. Because I think it's true to say, and I think you referred to this recently, Chair, that in the year before COVID struck, which is, 3 years ago, I think our temporary accommodation costs per annum were less than £1 million. And now they're projected to go to £7.6 million this year. That, in a few short years, that is a staggering increase. And, to be honest with you, all the indicators are that it's probably likely to get even worse. I mean, at the moment, there's record numbers of people living out the streets in London, for example. As the report touches on, we are doing what we can to try and reduce those costs. And as you see, we've opened up our latest hostel in Ifield Road, which is rapidly filling up with residents, and that will reduce some of the pressure on our budget. But of course, ultimately, unless we get real money in, it's a drop in the ocean, really. And also, we've got our modular housing scheme still awaiting planning permission in Ifield, and when that happens, that again will help. But really, we do need a lot more. I mean, it's pretty true to say that the situation, for all sorts of different reasons, is actually becoming quite dire. And I've probably said this before, but it's heartbreaking for the people who are housed as homeless, and it's also heartbreaking for the possible consequences of the services that this council provides to the people of Crawley. So I'll just leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Irvine. I completely agree. I mean, just to put this in context, we're looking at a massive overspend by many millions of pounds this year on our original estimated budget, which was a pessimistic estimate to begin with. 5 years ago, I think the figure was just over £250,000 it cost this council annually. So the difference is utterly staggering, and you rightly identify the human cost in this. We are trying incredibly hard as a council to keep roofs over people's heads. I think that the numbers of people affected in this borough are staggering. I think is there's no other word for it. Even if many of our residents don't actually know the people affected, I would say they almost certainly know somebody who's affected and in this situation at the moment, even if they don't know it. I've got Councillor Mullins, Chris Mullins to begin with, and then Councillor Sue Mullins.
Thank you, Leader. Because I've been around a long time, I sort of know what things were like, and I know that what times were like in the past, and not all times in the past were easy, but we as a town survived very well in those circumstances, recording some of the lowest unemployment in the UK with the benefit of the airport and Manor Royal, and some of the best housing actually in the UK. And there was enough of it, and our housing lists used to move and people used to get housed. I had an elderly lady ring me up today to talk about some issues with her housing, and she said to me, when I came to Crawley, I was young, but my family was promised housing all my children would be housed. This would be the place to come and live, and we would be able to give everybody houses. And I said, do you know, when I came to Crawley, we had two lists. We had a newlyweds list and we had a general needs list. And both those lists moved. The newlyweds list moved to the extent that people got married and they came into the town hall, showed their wedding certificate and probably their rings, and walked out with a set of keys to a house. And the general needs list was like that as well. And people were able to be housed in this town, and we were proud to house our people. So what's gone wrong? And we have to be honest, and we have to start to analyse what's gone wrong. And housing has become a very commercialised product, and that's what's gone wrong. And ever since we started selling off council houses, and the open market's taken over, there is no housing for people who cannot afford a £300,000 or a £400,000 mortgage. They're boxed out of it altogether, and that's the truth. And if you try and rent a 3-bedroom house on the open market today in Crawley, an ex-council house, you're probably going to be asked to pay £1,800 or so in rent for that. This is the problem we got. It's a disaster. And it's a disaster of the making of 14 years of Tory rule. They don't care. And we're in a situation where homeless people are costing us over £7 million a year simply because the Tories don't care. And that's really what's happened. And until we change that government, we change the policy and we bring housing back under control again, we won't ever be able to really balance our budgets very easily. I've got to thank our officers this year because the sterling job they've done on finding a way through this year's budget is absolutely excellent, to be admired. But we can't keep sucking our reserves. We can't keep finding money from nowhere. There's no such thing as a money tree. And more of the economy is in trouble. We should have been able to rent our accommodation out here a lot easier than what's happening. And so the story goes on all over the town, where there are difficulties for businesses closing. This country is in a state, it's in a state that I've never ever in the whole of my life seen before. And it's awful. And I feel so sorry for the people. Now, I'm one of the lucky ones because I was a person that grew up in the welfare state. When it was growing, developing and moving forward. That's gone now. The welfare... I was talking to somebody today who can't get doctor's appointments. You can't even get medicines half the time. I mean, the whole... Whatever part of our society you look at is going wrong. Whether it's the water industry, whether it's the NHS, it's housing, the social service. Look around. All of the elements of our society, they don't work. And there isn't one single industry that was privatised that works properly. Not the railways, not the energy systems, nothing. Nothing works. Privatisation does not work, and it's showing us now that it fails consistently to deliver. And that's the situation with Michael. And I'll stop there. I know I've gone on a long time.
No, it's not so
but
much
this
that.
Is quite...
Can I run you back to the council budget?
The council budget is, I think, a miracle this year that we've managed to achieve what we've achieved. Thank you very much for achieving it. What we're going to do next year, I'm just going to say a prayer.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Mullins. I hope it works for all of our benefits. All I can say is I agree. I think looking at housing, we're observing system failure happening in real time in front of us. It's a national failure. I want to make that clear, with an acute effect on us locally. And what's even more frustrating is it's local councils that have to pick up the pieces of something which isn't of our making. I think is no one here, I think, would argue with that. And perhaps I should have said it in my presentation, but I do agree with you. I do pay tribute to our finance officers and our senior management team who have responded to one piece of terrible financial news after another and worked to give us something which is very sustainable, not just with the quarterly outturn today, but later on with the budget items. I rather suspect that the items discussed tonight in both those items are going to overlap somewhat, but we'll do our best. Councillor Sue Mullins.
Thank you. I will attempt to be brief. I find the figures really interesting. Mostly when we look at budgets and that, it's all very dry and we think, oh yes, that's okay, and oh, that's happened. But this jumps out at you when you say 6 houses were sold, whether you're for or against the sale of council houses, that only 6 were sold in the last quarter compared to 42 in the matching quarter before. And that's a seven times decrease. And at the same time, we're looking at a 7 times increase over the past few years on temporary accommodation. These things don't happen in a vacuum. They're happening because of the state of the country and the state of the finances of our council. And again, I would echo that our officers are doing a sterling job. But at the end of the day, in the future, they won't be able to produce a rabbit out of a hat. If there's no money left, there's no money left for us to do. And it all goes on at the same time as everyone has experienced huge hikes in interest rates, huge hikes in energy bills, in the cost of living is soaring totally out of control. I mean, we keep seeing on the television at the moment, oh look, it's coming down, inflation is coming down. Well, people forget when the inflation comes down, it doesn't go back to where it was a year ago or 2 years ago. It's just not going up quite so much. So the cost of your shopping when you go shopping maybe will only go up by 2% instead of 4%, but it's still going up and it doesn't match people's wages, and that's what's being reflected now within our town. And that's why when you walk around our town, for the first time I've noticed this in Crawley now, walk around the county mall, how many empty shops there are. Walk down the high street, empty shops. There are empty shops every little corner and everywhere you go. That concerns me greatly because that's the economy of Crawley that we haven't seen before. Yes, we rely on the airport, and yes, we rely on Manor Royal. They do a sterling job to employ our people. But things are happening within the town and things are going down. People can't go shopping, they can't buy the things they want to do, they can't save for a house. It is becoming more and more difficult. And I feel very concerned about what the future holds for this council. It's doing its best, it's holding things together, but for how long can we hold things together when we are not getting the support we need from central government? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mullins. Can I just check there's no other Cabinet members who'd like to speak? No? No? Okay, in that case... You've had your chance now. That's right. Thank you. I therefore move that the Cabinet agree to note the projected outturn for the year 23-24 as summarised in the report FIN 643. Approve the addition to the capital programme of £53,000 635 for artificial cricket wickets and new bays funded by a £43,000 635 contribution from the England Cricket Board and £10,000 from Sussex Cricket, and approve the addition to the capital programme of £115,000 680 to deliver the final elements of the HRA database funded from the Housing Revenue account. Can I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Nawaz. Is that agreed? Thank you. We'll move on to item 8, where we'll consider the 24-25 budget and council tax report. This is included in the supplementary agenda as well. I will present this again tonight. Cabinet, I'm presenting to you the papers for the budget that will be presented to the council in February, or this current version of them. I believe it is a solid budget that's designed to take us through the tough times for local government that's been forced on us by the current government nationally. Despite a strong record on financial management here in Crawley, the council is receiving £8.9 million less support annually from central government in real terms than we did back in 2010 when it was first elected, and our overall spending power has fallen by 69%. Given that, and if those official statistics are to be believed, it is a minor miracle that we've been as successful as we have in ensuring that frontline services have been protected by as much as they have. But inevitably, this means we have to take action to do all we can to ensure that we get through the next year, despite, in some cases, the spiralling costs the council is facing through no fault of our own. The final local government finance settlement is anticipated in February. I am less hopeful, however, that this will bring any more favourable news for the council. And here's the reason why. There's an inherent structural problem in the local government finance system. The system doesn't allow a mechanism for councils to deal with high levels of inflation because there is significantly more expenditure, like on paying contracts, that will increase with inflation. And we only have limited scope to increase discretionary fees and charges, which form a much smaller proportion. This does not assist us because we have a statutory duty to set a balanced budget now. And there will also be work needed over the coming year to ensure that we're in the right place for the following year's budget. However, let's concentrate on the current proposals. The general fund budget assumes a council tax increase below the referendum level of 2.99% or £6.76. This will result in a £232.10 charge for a Band D property. The budget also assumes that fees and charges are increased by at 7% where feasible. And while that the inflation rate has fluctuated, this is around the rate it has been over the past year and actually reflects the council's cost increases, or certainly some of them. We were able to increase fees and charges by less than inflation last year, but increasing pressures mean we cannot repeat that again this year. I believe. We have, however, tried to strike a balance, and this increase in our council fees and charges still compares very favourably to nearby councils, which are either on a par or higher. I understand that West Sussex County Council are increasing their fees and charges by 8% and Mid Sussex District Council by 10.3%. This level has been chosen because we're trying to strike a balance between affordability for our residents and the actual costs facing this council. The general fund budget for 24-25 forecasts to take from balances of £1.2 million. This will be reduced by the increase in the funding guarantee grant announced on Wednesday the 24th of January, which was too late to be included in the budget papers when they were published. The government recently announced this amid, may I say, a great deal of undeserved self-congratulations from themselves, an increase to the minimum funding guarantee that they give to councils. But it's such an inadequate rise that when I took advice from our finance officers, they calculated that it won't even cover 1 week of this council's increased temporary accommodation bill. Local government deserves so much more than this treatment. It's an understatement, and Crawley certainly deserves so much more. Just for the figures, we estimate that this additional amount's about £138,000, which, as I said, is more than swallowed up by the cost of homelessness, which we think is about £153,000 at the moment and is only likely to get worse, sadly. The drawdown from reserve is therefore £190,000 more than forecast in the budget strategy in November. And the identified service expenditure pressures have worsened significantly as reported in the previous item. The main additional pressures being the additional £900,000 for temporary accommodation and £630,000 for the town hall and district heat network. And as I said earlier, these increases have been balanced by a favourable increase in the level of business rates. Just to address the housing revenue account, there will be a rent increase contained in the budget of 7.7%. That's inflation plus 1%. This is the amount that the government has identified as acceptable to raise rents by this year. And the HRA balance is anticipated to be around £3 million at the end of the period, which is a healthy balance, but one we will need. The capital strategy is in Appendix 9. That contains a high-level overview of how capital expenditure, capital financing and the Treasury management activity contribute to the provision of the council services. And while I believe this is a solid foundation, our capital strategy is also something we'll need to strengthen even further going forward as funds get less and the need to prioritise capital spend and understand the revenue implications of the capital programme gets more important. It will also need to be reviewed in terms of our asset management planning and the increasing need to get the best value out of our asset base, and this will be ongoing. So I present that to the Cabinet. I'll now bring in Councillor Ayling to present the Commission's comments from Monday. Thank you, Councillor Ayling.
Thank you. During the discussion with the Leader of the Council, the Head of Corporate Finance and the Chief Accountant, the following comments were made. Concerns raised about the future budget gaps. It was noted that the review of current reserves was part of the process identified by the budget strategy, but reserves could only be used once. A seminar has been arranged to provide further budgetary information. Details sought on the current overspend within the repairs and the maintenance budget. It was noted that there had been various national changes impacting the services during decent home standards, new legislation and national campaigns, and more recently the new structure for the repairs team. The Commission noted the report and requests that the views expressed during the debate were fed back to the Cabinet through the Commission's comment sheet. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ayling. I'll now open the debate for other Cabinet members. Would anyone like to comment? I suspect we've covered a fair number of the themes already in the first agenda item, but yeah. Oh, Councillor Sue Mullins, yeah.
Just very briefly, I mean, figures are wonderful and we can read through them, but what we have to always keep in the back of our mind that every one of these figures is a person, it's a family, and you know, it's when we talk about homelessness and we're having to do temporary accommodation, that's a family that's been totally disrupted. They've lost their home, they've probably lost all their furniture, they've probably moved to an area where they haven't got friends or support anymore, and their children may have had to move school. Particularly when we're having to start housing people outside the borough, which I'm not sure where we are with that now, but we must be fast approaching the stage where we actually haven't got the accommodation within our borders. So it becomes a human problem. It's not just an exercise on a piece of paper saying this balances with that and this is what we're paying out for that and somebody ought to do something about something. This is real, this is people and it's people's lives, and that's the way we should always look at it and come from that direction.
Thank you, Councillor Mullins. I don't have the precise figures, but yeah, unfortunately, out of borough placements are more and more frequent, much as we wouldn't do it otherwise. But there is a significant demand on existing temporary accommodation, not just from within Crawley. We find we're in competition not just with the Home Office, but other authorities as well, and that's part of the difficulties that our strategic housing team have to deal with. And again, I should repeat what I said on Monday at the OSC, which is I pay great tribute to our strategic housing officers who are dealing with incredible pressures from many residents who clearly are in such a difficult situation in their lives that it's a very difficult situation for them, and it can be quite emotional. I can't see anyone else looking to speak, so I will move to the recommendation. I move that the Cabinet approves the recommendations as set out in 2.2 A to G on pages 25 and 26 of the supplementary agenda. Can I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Nawaz. Saw you first. Is that agreed? Thank you. We'll now consider the Treasury Management Strategy. The Council's required to have a Treasury Management Strategy approved for the year ahead. This one broadly follows that was approved last year. It's the current strategy. The policy includes the minimum revenue provision policy statement, which documents how the council will prudently pay down its debt each year. And it also sets out the limits of cash investments, who we can invest in and up to what level to keep our cash safe, Security, liquidity and yield are our primary considerations before we apply any other ones. Most of the council's investments are with other local authorities, and most of whom have their own climate emergency declarations. The council's bank account is with Lloyds, who follow the UN principles for responsible banking and the Net Zero Bank Alliance. The strategy states we will prioritise banks who follow these two principles, along with our ethical investment policy. Members will note that our counterparty limit with local authorities is being increased to £15 million from £10 million. It should be said that local authorities continue in our judgment to offer the best deals. We raise this to give a scope should a good investment come up. It's a limit we might not necessarily go up to. We would follow the normal investment procedure for keeping our money safe in any case, so it's still considered prudent. Addressing interest rates, we are projecting a better yield due to a few old low interest rates deals maturing and 8 new deals locked in at interest rates ranging from 5.25% to 5.6%. So it's certainly good that we're locked in such good interest rates on forthcoming local authority loans, but realistically such rates are likely to gradually go down, however much we appreciate them at the moment. As we have a number of good rates locked in, though, we might not see the impact on us immediately, however. There was a longer discussion on this at the Overview and Scrutiny Commission, but I think I've covered most of the important points, so I'll finish my introduction there, and I'll bring in Councillor Ayling to present the Commission's comments.
Thank you. Okay. During the discussion with the leader of the council, the head of corporate finance and the chief accountant, the following comments were made. Acknowledgement that the current local authority still provides a good rate of return on investments. A confirmation provided that under the legislation, local authorities were not allowed to default on loans. It would not be wise to lend to local authorities that had issued a Section 114 notice. The Commission noted the report and requests that the views expressed during the debate were fed back to the Cabinet through the Commission sheet. Thank you.
Many thanks, Councillor Ayling. I'll now open the debate for other Cabinet members. Not seeing anyone. So thank you very much, Cabinet. In that case, I move that the Cabinet request full Council to approve the recommendations as set out on page 11 of the papers. I need a seconder. Thank you, Councillor. Saw Councillor Noyce this time first. Thank you. So, is that agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Right, item 10. We will now consider the review of Crawley Borough Council's statement of licensing policy for the 24 to 29. Councillor Khan, would you like to say anything at this point?
Sorry, my voice. The report was read out on OSC, and we had no, I think everybody supported, and there was no comments, and there was no further recommendations made, so I would suggest if we can agree.
Well, I'll just bring in Councillor Ayling to present the Commission's comments to begin with, Councillor Khan, and Cabinet members may have something to say as well. We'll call Councillor Ayling in first.
Right, thank you. During the discussion with the Cabinet Member for Public Protection and the Head of Community Services and the Public Protection Enforcement Manager, the following comments were made. Noted that it was a legal requirement for that the Council published a statement of licensing policy under the Licensing Act 2003. Clarity was sought and obtained regarding ward members' involvement in the process. It was confirmed that the ward councillors were informed of all new applications and any applications to vary a licence across the borough. The Commission noted the report and requested that the views expressed during the debate were fed back to Cabinet. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ayling. Would any members of the Cabinet like to speak? Councillor Irvine.
Thank you, Chair. I haven't really got much to add because I'm a member of the Licensing Committee, and we considered it at the Licensing Committee, and even there wasn't a lot of discussion on it. I just want to say, though, I think this is a very comprehensive and robust statement of policy, and it will fit this town very, very well. And there must have been an awful lot of work that's gone into producing it. So I wonder if we could sort of just, record our thanks to the authors of the report for all the work that has gone into it.
Yes, I absolutely agree with that. Can I just check any other Cabinet members? And I could give Councillor Khan an opportunity to respond at that point. Any other comments? Okay, thank you. Councillor Khan, would you like to add anything?
Not really. All I can say is thank you to all the officers that really helped out with the report, and they've been there to guide us, and I think nobody's over there today. So I'm a bit stuck without them, so no, that was here. But yeah, no, we've I've spent a lot of time, and Bob's been involved as well with the PSPO, so I think we've worked really hard with all the licensing and everything.
So that's the next that's what
yes.
Next item, but yes. Okay, thank you, Councillor Khan. I think I always smile wryly when this policy comes up, because it's probably one of the most best scrutinised and read policies in the entire council, because it goes through licensing, OSC and Cabinet, and it's obviously even possible to reserve it for debate at full council as well. So it certainly gets excellent scrutiny. One of the reasons I think it didn't have an enormous amount of discussion at the licensing committee, if I can say so myself, is it's such an excellent policy. It was very difficult to draw too much attention to it. I certainly personally welcome that. Will be one of the leading local authorities when it comes to dealing with things like modern slavery going forward. I think that's very important, and that we're doing that. And Crawley Borough Council has always had a very strong record on licensing and licensing enforcement. I'm proud of that as a former chair of licensing, and long may that continue. And I certainly agree with Councillor Irvine. I mean, maybe we could have it noted in the minutes that the Cabinet would like to thank the officers for putting together such a comprehensive and successful policy, and we look forward to it being brought into reality over the coming years. So thank you to everyone. So in that case, I think everyone's spoken. So can I move the Cabinet is recommended to agree the recommendations as set out on page 39. Yeah. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Khan, thank you. And is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you, Cabinet. Move on to item 11. We will now consider the PSPO, Council-Owned Multi-Storey Car Parks report. I believe Councillor Noyce will be presenting, but Councillor Khan, as car parks sort of crosses across the portfolios, if you'd like to add anything, I'll call you in at that point. So, Councillor Noyce.
Thank you, Chair. PSPO Council-Owned Multi-Storey Car Parks. This report outlines recommendations to introduce a new public spaces protection order which restricts activity within council-owned multi-storey car parks which have suffered sustained issues related to crime and antisocial behaviour. Officers began looking into this last year following a number of complaints from car park users. The council attempted to address this in partnership with the police, and a number of proactive patrols were carried out by council officers, the police and a security company, which has not delivered a sustainable solution to the issues being presented. The most challenging element of this is that of legal powers. When officers are requesting that individuals engaged in criminal or antisocial behaviour leave the site Should they refuse, the only action currently available is to proceed with a civil trespass enforcement through the court, which would take significant resources and time, not addressing the immediate issue. The introduction of a Public Services Protection Order, which restricts such behaviours, would provide officers and the police with powers to give a lawful instruction to cease the behaviour or to leave with immediate effect and not to return to the location within 48 hours. Failure to comply with these instructions is a criminal offence and a fixed penalty or prosecution. Public consultation took place from the 1st November to 30th of November 2023. A copy of the consultation questions is included in Appendix A. A total of 62 respondents completed the questionnaire, with 76% supporting the introduction of this PSPO. A written response was received from the managing agent for Sussex House Car Park. The response outlined the antisocial behaviour and criminal activity that they have experienced over the last 8 years, which included thefts, drugs, drug dealing, prostitution, graffiti, criminal damage, nuisance, car racers and skateboarders. The response stated that the council safeguarding their own car parks with a PSPO would shift and intensify the issues onto private car parks. The response requested the inclusion of all town centre multi-storey car parks within the PSPO and stated that without extending the PSPO, they would strongly oppose its implementation. It is important to note that it is not the council's responsibility to safeguard the commercial activity of a private managing agent, and when an officer would determine whether the legal test has been met for the order, there was a lack of evidence to support the need for this to be extended to Sussex House or any other site, with no reports being made to the council and very few being made to the police. As such, the legal test was not met and should not be considered. The order can, however, be varied should there be an increase in evidence reports, but the council cannot patrol this site, and addressing ASB remain the responsibility of the landowner managing agent. Cabinet is asked to consider recommendations within the report and to make any comments, if any, it wishes, to full council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Noyce. I think that was very comprehensive. So, Councillor Khan, is there anything, or do you think Councillor Noyce has covered that? No. Lovely. Okay, thank you. Right. In that case, I'll now open the debate for other cabinet members. I see Councillor Mullins.
Thank you, Lee.
Oh, sorry. Before I do that, Councillor Mullins. Democratic Services have rightly pointed out I need to call in Councillor Ayling to present the Commission's comments. Councillor Ayling, your time will come, Councillor Mullins, I promise.
Thank you. During the discussion with the Cabinet Member for Environment and Sustainability and Climate Change, the Head of Community Services and the Public Protection and Enforcement Manager, the following comments were made. Clarity provided on measuring the success of a PSPO. The use and number of FPNs was not an indication of the overall PSPO success. Acknowledgement that the following the consultation, the majority had been in support of the PSPO. The Commission was pleased that the Sussex Police had also supported the proposals. There was general support for the empowering police officers, PCSOs, and the public protection team. Given the strong evidence of support and need for the proposal, it was moved by Councillor Lanza and seconded by Councillor Russell that the Commission expressed its explicit support for the introduction of the PSPO, which was agreed. That was noting and welcoming the report. The Commission also expressed its explicit support for the introduction of the PSPO. It was requested that the views expressed during the debate were fed back to the Cabinet through the Commission's comment sheet. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ayling. Please pass back to the Commission that we actively encourage to explicitly support future items that come to the Cabinet. Thank you. I'll now open the debate for other Cabinet members, and I saw Councillor Chris Mullins first. Yeah.
Thank you, Leader. Whilst I do support this PSPO in these circumstances, I can't help feeling, whilst we need to go forward and do this, that the effect of the PSPOs, I think this is our fourth one now, is starting to make us look like we're also a police force, although not with the same legal responsibilities that a police officer would have, and starting to make us recognise the shortages and shortfallings really of the police service in covering many of the what are quite simply criminal activities that go on, whereas we have to use a resource to the PSPOs to cover these activities. I don't know exactly where our society is going. If we're going to end up with an alternative civil police force, I would sooner we went down the road of doing it properly and recognising it and giving those people some powers and some perhaps heavier, more sophisticated training, because sometimes they're going to get into situations which might not be too safe for them. I am pleased to report, though, that the PSPO that we've had up at Tilgate has resulted in a very, very heavy fining situation for a culprit who is a continuous committer of offences as far as the PSPO concerning dogs is concerned. And I think that message should go out to all people to say that we won't sit back and let these things happen. We will take action, and we've taken action in this case, and it's well-deserved action with the right result. So congratulations to those officers that achieved that result on behalf of that.
Okay, Councillor, you got that in. It's not specifically on this item, though, is it?
No, yes. It's on the general PSPO situation, which I'm showing an example of where it's working, Michael.
Okay, fair enough.
And that's what's happened here.
Okay, you've done that, yes.
Now, I'm hoping this one works as well. But I'm also voicing a little concern about where we're going with PSPOs, and I've got to leave that at that, because we could end up with a dozen, and we're going to have to build the staff to match them if we carry on like this.
Thanks, Councillor Mullins. Clearly, one of the reasons this has been introduced is it's going to be able, this PSPO will give our officers the additional ability to deal with problems that have arisen at the car parks, which sadly, under what was currently available to us, it was not possible to deal with as effectively as we'd like to. So we are definitely bringing this in, I think, because it is essential that we're able to do this, and this is the way that we can achieve a lot of those desired outcomes. I've got Councillor Rana on next list.
Thank you, Chair. I'm very pleased actually for once this PSP has been come forward, enforcement, because it was getting quite intimidating for especially lone females and even children going to the car parks, whether it's council-owned car parks or whether private car parks during the daytime or the night time. And I have encountered it quite a few times because they sit there asking you for money and they're smoking, the smell stays in the air for such a long time. And especially during, I never really went anywhere in the dark time. Mostly I don't really go anywhere much during the dark anyway, but what I heard is some ladies were telling me they're quite scared actually to park their cars now in the car park during the night time, so they always try to go with a group of friends together. So I'm really pleased. I hope something comes that it will stop everything, all unwanted strangers or unwanted people making a mess everywhere. And I can know, so many times, like in the Morrison car park, I used to go there, and that was really bad. So I hope they have the same one there as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rana. This PSPO will help issues during the day as well as in the evening to resolve them.
That's good. Thank you, Councillor.
I'll let you come back if, on points at the end, if that's okay, Councillor Noyce. Yeah. Right. I've got Councillor Sue Mullins.
Thank you. If we're going to have car parks that we're responsible for, then we are responsible for protecting the public who use those car parks. And our residents need to be able to know that they're safe and secure if they go into a car park and park there at any time of the day, as you said, day or night. And our nighttime economy is very important for us in Crawley as well. We want people to come in from outside of Crawley and from within Crawley, park in the town centre and go and enjoy themselves and feel confident that when they come back to the car park, their car will still be there. It will be untampered with and everything. And also, as they walk back through the car park, that they feel safe and not worried about who's watching them or what other sort of people are there. So I think we have a duty to do this. I think the PSPO is a great idea for our own car parks. Obviously, we can't be responsible for other car parks in the area. That's down to the owners of those car parks. But I hope that they're getting the message that we are making good efforts to protect people, and that's what we need. So it's not just about making people, it's about a perception of what Crawley is. We don't want people to say, I'm not going to Crawley to go to the cinema, or I'm not going to Crawley to go to the theatre, or I'm not going to go to Crawley to just go and have a drink along the high street or to have a meal, because they think, do I feel safe? And you often hear it now. People will go to one of the parades or to the town centre and they say, not sure I'd like to be here at night. There are people here that make me feel uncomfortable. It's more a perception than an actual threat. And therefore, I think by providing this PSPO, we are assuring people we are on the case, we do understand. And also, I think it's very important, is to link up with Crawley Open House and those other agencies. Because people don't hang about in car parks just because it's fun. There's usually about underlying problem, an underlying cause, an underlying reason, and therefore having these other agencies, as like Open House, involved, and they're on the ground, who they understand, they're able to go out and talk to people and perhaps make a difference. So I think it is joint working that hopefully will work really well.
Thank you, Councillor Mullins. Was there anything, Councillor Noyce or Councillor Khan, you'd like to respond on the points that have been raised? Councillor Khan.
What Councillor Mullins just mentioned about vulnerable people, we discussed that the other day, that we will be working with Open House and other agencies. So we're not there just to issue fines. So we are there to support people, especially rough sleepers. So we are going to be taking that into account and utilise the agencies and work with them. So yeah, we are there to deter people that are causing problems, but not the vulnerable. We are there to support them.
Thank you, Councillor Khan. Councillor Noyce?
Yeah, I'd like to echo all the positive responses which we had from this, and the fact that this is going to make the car park users more secure during the day and night, and with a redress system in case there are problems, that we can do something about it straight away. Just one point on Councillor Rana mentioned Morrison's. That's actually Sussex House, so it's not ours anyway. So, and that was mentioned in the statement which I read out. So thank you all very much.
Thank you, Councillor Noyce. If I may add my own thoughts at this point, just to state, this is proceeding with the work that we agreed to do to make several of our town centre multi-storey car parks safer, and the consultation, has been said, showed broad support, and a sufficient proportion of our users have told us quite clearly that they've seen behaviour that would warrant a PSPO being enforced. This decision isn't about undermining anyone's civil liberties. If you aren't going in or out of a car park for the legitimate reasons of coming to or going from your car, then you simply have no business being in there in the first place. It is absolutely right that we're seeking to protect users in this way. Now, I recognise there is an issue with a private car park at the old Morrison's building, but Sussex House. But as has been said, We've been told it's impossible to add them at this late stage, not least of which, if they have been having problems, they haven't been reporting it either to the police or the council to the levels that would satisfy the evidence threshold that setting up a PSPO requires. Now, that doesn't mean we couldn't look to vary the order at some point in the future, although as a private enterprise, they would be directed to arrange their own security in the first instance. So, now everyone's had a chance to speak, I'm going to move that the Cabinet supports the recommendations on page 129, but as this is a legal one, I'm going to read it out in full to make sure it can't be challenged. I move that the Cabinet requests that full council make a PSPO in the form set out in Appendix A, with the restricted area being Orchard Street Multi-Storey Car Park, the Town Hall Multi-Storey Car Park and Kingsgate Multi-Storey Car Park, which should come into force on the 26th of February 2024 for a period of 3 years. Further resolve that the level for fixed penalty notices which may be issued for a breach of the PSPO in the event that full council makes a PSPO in the form of the draft Appendix A of this report, HCS/072 NO, be set at £100. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Rana. Is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Thank you, Cabinet. We now move on to item 12, which is the installation of toilet facilities at Cherry Lane and Millpond unsupervised adventure playgrounds reports. This report brings forward the funding to allow the toilet provision that Cabinet had previously agreed as part of the overall capital works. However, what later became apparent is that although the capital elements of the expenditure had been successfully agreed, there is a revenue expenditure element which covers the cleaning and routine maintenance that had not been included. So this report and decision will address this and will then so resolve the final outstanding matters relating to re-establishing the adventure playgrounds as was originally intended. So I'll now open the debate for other Cabinet members. Councillor Mullins.
Thank you, Leader. I'm pleased to see that we've got here with this now. We've debated it quite a lot in various places, and we have carried the policy through the full council for the concept on the 20th of October 21. So we have a sitting policy. That policy meant that we closed 2 of our existing adventure playgrounds. That's Creasy's Drive and at Waterley at Furnace Green. Creasy's Drive has got a reuse now as a centre for our vehicles and grass cutting and etc. Forgotten the term to use now for that. And at the moment, the Waterley site is in mothballs, but we're looking at ideas to use that site. The other 2 sites have become unsupervised adventure playgrounds. That is, that they're opened and closed in the morning and the evening, different times, winter, summer, but that parents, families can go there and picnic, meet one another and spend a considerable amount of time on site, enjoying a lovely summer day, perhaps with a picnic and the children playing on the installed equipment that we've put in there, some excellent equipment I might add. So the importance of this now is that right from the beginning, when we took the decision to keep 4 adventure playgrounds open was not really viable, it had a heavy staffing and costing level, that we could save a considerable amount of money by closing 2 and reusing them to other purposes, and that the 2 that we kept open would be unsupervised, which wouldn't have a staffing financial factor to it, but could also be used with staff as well on occasions when events might take place within them, and it would also give good outlets for families in and around Crawley. They so far have been very successful. We've run both of the adventure playgrounds with Portaloo type toilets, which has cost us quite a considerable figure to date. So that figure is a cost factor on what we've been doing. And once we go forward with this policy tonight now, we won't have to spend that money on the Portaloos, and it can go straight in to the provision of permanent secure loos that people can use on site. And I look forward to that, and perhaps to one or two opening events at the two sites where we can take the leader and show him using one of the toilets. Which I think would be quite good publicity in the event.
Are there going to be glass walls then, Councillor Mullins?
I won't labour this on now because we have discussed it so much before. Can I make a move, or do you want me to second it, Chair? If you're going to make the move, Leader.
Yeah, I think I move it, Councillor Mullins.
Well, can you put me down as a seconder then?
I'll consider it. Okay. Councillor Rana, we have you next to speak.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to add, like the Eiffel Millpond, last year I went there about so many times, actually nearly almost every month. And it's a lovely playground, really. I mean, the equipment is really good, and some of them are so good, even adults can go there. Even I went there. And my granddaughter, she's, well, she was little now, but she's just turned 1 year, and as she gets older, she will probably be needing the toilets, because the toilets are, I mean, the house is right in the corner, and there's nowhere to go to toilets, or you just, I mean, because I live in West Green, so it would be good to have the toilet block there, definitely. And I now seen so many families going with their young children, and if one of the children wants to go to toilet, and the mum just quickly had to drag them all the way home again. So it's really a good idea, really, to have permanent toilets there. I don't know anything about Langley Green, though, because I haven't really been there. So, but I think I feel Millpond would be an ideal place. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rana. Councillor Sue Mullins.
Thank you. Our adventure playgrounds are much loved and much remembered by our residents. They go back so many years. It must be 50 years, 60 years since the first one opened, and I think the first one was Langley Green. They're really appreciated by the residents of Crawley, and I know a lot of residents of Crawley have very fond memories of playing there themselves, then their children, and then their grandchildren are now taking part of them. It was a very controversial thing when we had to talk about closing down on what we could do with them and how we could keep them open in a way that they would still be accessible for as many people as possible. And I know there were lots of doubts expressed at the time whether this would work. Was it possible? Were we undermining what we'd had before? But actually it's been incredibly successful. If you go up to Cherry Lane now or down to the Millpond during the summer, the place is packed. And it's not just for the people who live in that immediate area. People come in from outside of Crawley because they know that it's a lovely place to go, have a picnic, let your kids run around and have a lot of fun. If you provide a facility like that, then you have to provide the facilities that go with it. And one of the most important has to be toilet facilities, not just for a hygiene point of view or convenience. It's part of the offer. Go here, you can stay as many hours you like. You haven't got to worry that you're dragging kids home up the road with their legs crossed because they've got to get home quick. And neither of those playgrounds are anywhere near any kind of public conveniences. So it was really important that we installed toilets in both those areas. So this for me is like the last piece of the puzzle. And I think our residents will really appreciate it come the summer months when at the moment there's still loads of kids up there. There's loads of families go up there to use the cycle tracks and the playgrounds and just appreciate the being out in the outdoors, even if it isn't very warm. And I think come the summer, they'll be well used and are hopefully well looked after. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mullins. Any other speakers? I'm not seeing any. Okay. Therefore, okay, I move then the recommendations on page 155 of the Cabinet pack. Can I have a seconder? Oh, okay, Councillor Mullins. Is that agreed? Thank you. Thank you. We'll move on to item 13, which is we will now consider the allocating monies collected through SIL report. Councillor Nawaz to present.
you, Chair. I'm sure the Cabinet have seen the report and it's quite a good read. So I'll present the report with some of the recommendations as well. So this report is our regular update reports to the Cabinet on Community Infrastructure Levy funds received under their allocations. It's great to see that we have now received over 3.9 million in SIL receipts. There will be a further Cabinet report in the summer, which will focus on the SIL strategic infrastructure strand allocations once we have received the information from the planning inspectors of the outcome of our local plan examination in public hearing, which only completed almost this month, some of the hearings. This report before us this evening focuses on the neighbourhood improvement strand. 15% of all SIL receipts must be spent on schemes under the neighbourhood improvement strand. We have previously allocated SIL monies under the strand to the Neighbourhood Improvement Fund and to the Unsupervised Play Improvement Programme. This evening, Cabinet is being asked to approve further allocations from the SIL Neighbourhood Improvement Strand. Firstly, we are being asked to approve the allocation of 100,000 of SIL to the Three Bridges Football Club 3G pitch scheme, which is subject to a public consultation exercise and to evidence of the scheme funding gap being provided to the Chief Financial Officer. We've also been asked to agree to amendments as to how SIL Neighbourhood Improvement Strand is allocated, and this therefore means we can reallocate unspent SIL funds from the last year's and this year's Neighbourhood Improvement Fund allocation to the Unsupervised Play Improvement Programme, which I think is quite sensible. I'm very pleased to support this report and these recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nawaz. I'll now open the debate for other Cabinet members. Councillor Mullins.
Thank you. I welcome this report completely. I mean, it's an example of how we can use money and go forward and do good things for our community. I particularly welcome our involvement with the 3G pitch at Three Bridges, because that will always be a council-owned property, and we will own the result of that, although it's going to cost through, I think, the FA or Sport England, an awful lot more. I won't say the figure out loud, an awful lot more than that to provide it. So our part of it is relatively important, but not a major part of the cost of that facility. So it's an absolutely excellent investment for us, and the commitment that we've achieved in talking to the people that run Three Bridges Football Club is that we would have good community use, not just for their Three Bridges football team, but for other football teams, other activities that can go on that 3G pitch. So it is very much part of the community for the whole of Crawley, because people will travel from all of Crawley to go there, and perhaps people from outside for inter-town competitions. There's a lot going on there, and I'm very excited and look forward to seeing the opening of that pitch. On the unsupervised play areas where we have some shortfalls, I'll really welcome the SIL money for that, because those areas are so important to so many families in Crawley who just want to take their child or two out for a few hours into the fresh air where they can run around and enjoy themselves on equipment. But we've got to make sure that we have a good standard of equipment that is safe, up to standard, up to date, and equipment that parents can have confidence in. And some of our equipment is very, very old in Crawley and dated, and we do need to change it. So we have to work on it. So the opportunity to use SIL in that area is very, very important. And I appreciate the fact that that's come forward under SIL. Thank you very much, Atif.
Thank you, Councillor Mullins. Is there anyone who'd like to... Councillor Irving.
Thank you, Chair. Like Councillor Mullins, I welcome this as well, and I'm glad that we've found a good use for our neighbourhood SIL fund, because there's quite a lot of money there and it wasn't being used for anything very much. I'd just like to ask though. I mean, I agree with everything you say about the play areas, how important they are to children, to families across the town, and how some of them are showing their age now. But how are you going to, or how is the council going to ensure that the money is spread evenly and fairly across all the neighbourhoods of the town?
Very briefly, Councillor Monies, I think we'll be straying into the play strategy rather than the SIL money itself. The SIL money is a medium by which we help to provide the strategy. But yeah, if you want to say something, yeah.
When we started to analyse unsupervised play areas, I made it very clear to our officers at the time that I wanted to analyse all of them in the town, and that there wouldn't be any geographical priority, but we would do it on the basis of need. And so the worst play areas would be dealt with first, and in that order. And that's how we've been doing them. So all of them, there's a complete schedule, are there on priority order, because some of them are newer, had some good equipment in, and some of them were very old and poor, went back to the 60s or whatever. So we had to look at them in the honesty that they sat there in, and say, well, you know, that one really is a priority area. So we done some colours. You know, I think it was red, yellow, green, or whatever the colours were, to prioritise them and to put them in that order. So that's actually how they've been done.
Yeah, thank you. Was there anything you wanted to come back on there, Councillor Noaz, at all?
Not specifically, but I think what has been said is I totally agree with that. I think this is where the SIL money should be spent, and this is what we are looking for the communities, to help our communities to engage and providing them the facilities which is much needed. And as Councillor Mullin just mentioned, there is a programme of work which community services, with obviously working with the officers, with a lot of data goes behind it, to come with a plan of work, and that's where the money has been strategically spent. But it's not like there's no favouritism or anything like that. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Noaz. I mean, I think the good news we can all agree on is that the collection from developers of the SIL money has been better than we expected. We, as has been mentioned, we are moving £50,000 to be used in a neighbourhood strand, because we haven't spent the budgets over the years on the crowdfunding element. But we are leaving £25,000 in for next year, which we think is a realistic amount, because that's about the amount that's been spent over the last, or come out of it over the last 5 years. And that £50,000 will go towards Councillor Mullin's play areas, some of which, no doubt, in fact I'm certain, looking at the list, are going to be in Councillor Irvin's area. Predominantly, our purposes that the SIL money can be used for in the neighbourhood strand is the unsupervised play programme, but the report that's coming through tonight, as has been mentioned, does amend our SIL policy to allow spending on 3G pitches as another purpose, and as has been stated, this will hopefully unlock funding from the Football Foundation for Three Bridges Football Club, which will be a good deal because the club's ground is council asset, and the Cabinet, if we agree tonight, the recommendations will be committing £100,000 of SIL money to that project. Just to speak in favour of that, it's been said, but I think it's worth emphasising, Three Bridges Football Club have an incredible record with their community work and supporting groups in their activities. Their work in promoting women's football in particular is noteworthy and deserves our praise. So an additional all-weather 3G pitch will not only be good for the club, but also ensure there's another playable pitch when poor weather means other ones are not available. So that's got to be good for Crawley. It's been an absolute pleasure to be able to support the club in this way, and I really hope it's the first step in them becoming more successful than ever. I think it's a great reason to feel optimistic for their future in any case, and I know that we will all wish them well tonight at Cabinet. So with that all said, I move that the Cabinet approve all the recommendations 2A to F as documented on pages 159 to 160 of the agenda pack. Can I have a seconder? Actually, I think Councillor Irvine, I've overlooked you on a couple of occasions, unfortunately. So let's choose you this time. In which case, is that agreed? Thank you very much, Cabinet. I think at this point we will move on to consideration of the exempt reports. Therefore, I propose that under Section 100A, subsection 4 of the Local Government Act 1972, that the public be excluded from the meeting for the following items of business on the grounds that they involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in Part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Act by virtue of the paragraphs specified against the items. Is that agreed? Therefore, I hate to break the fourth wall and spoil the magic, but as we'll be discussing commercially confidential items now, members of the public who might be viewing us will have to leave us now, as will any members of the public. So can I wish everyone who might be viewing this for the first time online all the very best, and I hope they have a restful evening, or indeed whenever they might be watching this, as it will be on YouTube at some point, I'm reliably informed. So thank you very much. And if people could refrain from commenting until the webcast has actually stopped, then that would be appreciated. But a very good evening. Well, just